Welcome to Roguecast, the official podcast of Rogues Gallery. We'll talk comics for the week, as well as whatever news is on our pop cultural radar. I'm Randy.
I'm Nick.
This is Dave.
And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Roguecast. If you're just joining us again, sorry we didn't get the word out about the new feed to you. We had a lot of people, we have several people come and just say, hey, why have you guys not been podcasting the last few weeks? And the thing is, we have, but we had to move to a new server as a result of our new website. So we're now using Podbean instead of WordPress, and as a result, we have a new feed. It all updated automatically on iTunes and on YouTube, which I hadn't been using previously. But if you were listening through Spotify or you were listening to the feed that you had set up previously, that feed wasn't working. And surprise, there's like 9 more episodes for you to listen to.
I was going to say, you talking like this is a detriment. These people now have like 9 episodes to listen to.
The detriment would be that they thought we just stopped podcasting.
Nick, I like how you were like, these people.
What do you mean, you people?
You mean the 6 listeners that we have?
People?
The 6 listeners that we have?
That's right. We could have lost as many as 5 of them.
But anyway, if you're one of those people, welcome back.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the queue that we set up for you. But it was a little bit of chaos. Sorry about that. We'll try and make the podcast extra good from here on out.
I'm not going to try that.
I'm going to try.
No, I'm going to make it worse.
Why would
It's up to them to judge it, Randy.
Oh,
this is an easy promise because the fulfillment is subjective.
Yes.
You mean I have to put in effort?
So go ahead and just no. You don't have to. All we have to do is say we're going to, but you've ruined it because I've given away everything. Randy, be sure to edit this out.
Yep, I'll do that in all my copious editing. All right, so that reminds me. I was on my friend's podcast, and she was talking.
Oh, I see how it is.
They were talking about. They were talking about how they had an editor, and they were like, as they were talking, they would say the editor's name and say, "Sorry, editor," and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, you have someone else that edits this thing. That must be nice."
Yeah,
we don't. We just go through and you get everything, warts and all.
Reckless and chaotic.
Yes.
If there's a car alarm in the back, you get that.
You get the car alarms.
Yeah.
You get the screaming children who bang on the windows.
Yeah.
You get that.
We're not gonna deprive you of screaming children and car alarms.
So that's part of our pitch now too. We're real.
Yeah.
Yes, we're real.
You come to us when you want to get real.
So Rogues Gallery on the streets? Is that what?
That's right.
Rogues Gallery on the streets.
Also, Rogues Gallery in the sheets.
Yes.
Whatever that.
That's our podcast after dark. All right. Reminder: the reading challenge is going on. If you have a kiddo, you want to bring them in and read one of our packets. You can also download it from the website.
Yep.
And
they read some books.
5 books, I believe. 5 books.
For the summer, or graphic novels, specifically. We've got 3 suggested age, listings for different age categories. There's a little sort of the book reports on them is literally just write one favorite thing about each one of them. So it's an easy thing to do, and bring it back, and you get the goodie bag.
You get a goodie bag. That's right.
And they get to put their name up on the thing, which honestly, there was somebody who was in the other day, and I think that was like one of the coolest parts of it for their kid was that their name goes on our like wall of readers.
Yeah.
And it is cool, but there's also a goodie bag.
Free RPG Day coming up June 21st. I don't know. I've seen some. I guess there's a Marvel Multiverse RPG thing going to be in there.
Oh, sure.
We're starting to see the what's going to be in there trickling out amongst.
Is there a particular theme to it?
I don't know.
I hope it's Claw.
Sure.
He needs a spotlight.
Yeah. I hope it's D-Man related.
Okay.
Then in July 12th, we will have All Ages Awesomeness is returning. Andy Rutten of Owly fame will be here drawing sketches for kids, as will some other local artists. Hopefully later this week, early next, we will have our piece of art from Andy. There's going to be an owlbear drawn by the creator of Owly, which will be super fun.
That is amazing.
Games this week. A little bit light on the game front, but some notable stuff. Splendor gets a new expansion called The Sun Never Sets.
Nice.
Splendor, the game of like being a gem merchant.
Yeah. And it's one of those games where if you were to tell me that, I'd be like, well, that sounds boring as hell. But the game is super fun. There's a reason it's been around, and that it's one of those, like, I think, very approachable games.
Yep.
Like Catan and Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride. Like, if you're looking for a game to get your family into kind of the Euro gaming style, this Splendor has always been a good one. And what's the new one, did you say?
So it is called The Sun Never Sets. It adds bastions and the ability to forge lucrative trade routes to the Orient.
Okay.
So there you go.
Sounds good.
It says it ensures that no two sessions are alike with its dynamic new features.
Oh. All right. Shake it up, Splendor.
Yeah. All right. We got The Crew Family Adventure. The Crew is a cooperative trick-taking game. Mm-hmm. It's been very popular. They've done a couple. One is set in space, one's set undersea. This one is like a Swiss Family Robinson thing. Is a little more all-ages friendly. Yep. And we just got that in. It's a co-op that goes, I think, 3 to 8 players, something like that. Yeah, that's cool. But it also has a 2-player option. Caesar and Cleopatra is a new 2-player game where one player plays Caesar, the other one plays Cleopatra, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't know why you would think that.
We got a restock on the Mistborn deck building game. Yep. That's the same people that make Boss Monster and Call to Adventure. This is their Brandon Sanderson, I believe. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It's his Mistborn fantasy world. It's been getting good reviews. It's been out of print for a long time.
I was gonna say.
And we finally got it back in. And then a new game called Flip 7, which just got nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, which is one of the big board game awards, and is a super fun, easy to play, push your luck card game.
Yeah, I think somebody asked about it a week or two back, and I looked it up and I was like, oh, this has got some buzz. It's good.
A really fun game. I've been playing it on Board Game Arena, and it is a basically you flip a card. Mm-hmm. The cards are there's 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, all the way up through 12 12s.
Okay. And
what you do is each turn you flip a card. You can either hit or stay. If you stay, you get the points on the card. If you hit, you add points together, but if you get the same number, you lose that entire round.
Okay.
So, like, if you've got a 12, that's a lot of points, but the odds of getting another 12 are a lot higher because there's 10, 11 more in the deck.
I see.
And that's basically it. If you get to 7, you get all the points plus a 15-point bonus. Yeah, so it's great if you push all the way to 7, but it's really hard to do.
So is this like just teaching kids to play blackjack?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, that's what I'm getting.
But when you get first person to 200 points wins, it's a super fun, quick to play, easy to explain, really, really good game.
It sounds like
it's going to teach them to play blackjack better, so we can break the
just
casinos.
A new generation of kids counting cards.
Yeah, that's right.
Love it. Put those casinos out of business.
Yep. All right, comics. It's a team up week because there are 3 team up books from Marvel.
Okay. I think it's Spidey week, or not Spidey, but it's Superman week. But
it's also
pray continue.
It's also Spider-Man week because there is a couple Spider-Man books.
It's not as important.
We got Spider-Man and Wolverine by Mark Guggenheim and Kari Andrews. Uh-huh. This is like bringing them back into the spy world.
Yeah, which was the original Spider-Man Wolverine miniseries, like back in like late '80s, I think.
Yep.
Kind of had a spy vibe.
Yep. And they're doing some weird things with like Mysterio and Kraven, where they're and Omega Red, I think, where they're kind of crossing Wolverine and Spider-Man over a little bit. And there's a big tie-in to sort of both their backstories as well.
There's like a list of operatives out in the...
It's the Mission Impossible.
It's the Mission Impossible.
It's the knock list.
I hope that, now I haven't read this yet, but I'm going to hope that Kraven is in spy mode in it, because no one is a better undercover spy.
Kraven's on the knock list. He's like, no one can find out where I got my lion pelt jacket.
The movie explained it.
Yes, really.
Well, it's a good thing they finally got into the lore of Kraven.
And his lion head fest.
Yeah.
Vision and the Scarlet Witch is the continuation of Steve Orlando's Scarlet Witch story he's been doing.
Yeah.
Previously there was Scarlet Witch, then there was Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Now this is Vision and Scarlet Witch. The relationship a lot of people really like.
Yep. And back then it still has supporting character Darcy from the movies crossed over into the comics now, which I thought that was a good idea. I like her as kind of a friend and assistant to Wanda. And also, by the way, I was flipping through this and it had really good artwork, too.
It does contain the line, your tin housewife couldn't keep the Master of Death down.
So true. It's as true in the comic as it is in life.
And then we got Hulk and Doctor Strange, the latest team-up that J. Michael Straczynski's been writing.
What were the other? He did, like...
Doom and Rocket Raccoon.
Volstagg
and
Captain America.
Fin Fang Foom versus the Howling Commandos.
Nick Fury, yep.
And I was going to say, like, Hulk and Doctor Strange is maybe the least weird of those because they've been on the Defenders before.
They were Defenders together.
But like all of these, this is a standalone story, and it has kind of a neat premise to it. Basically, Banner is trying to decide. He's kind of like, whenever people get gamma radiated, they kind of become more of what they are. So, like, he's talking about how, like, Emil Blonsky became the terrifying abomination, but Jennifer Walters, who's a good person, became She-Hulk and got to kind of keep her intellect and morality. And he's like, what does it say about me that I became this freaking rage monster? And he goes to Doctor Strange for help, and Doctor Strange is like, well, he's like, it sounds like you're wanting to like go back and look at your life, and he's like, time travel's no good. He's like, well, but maybe we could let you astrally project as long as you're not going to, like, so you can't change things, you can only witness them. And that's sort of the issue. And, you know, JMS as a writer is kind of, and I think anybody who's followed him, whether it was in Babylon 5 or his Spider-Man run, he's a little bit of an acquired taste. Or you sometimes got to work with some of his quirks. If you can work with his quirks, I think this is one of his more entertaining outings.
He hits more than he misses, honestly. I liked his Thor run. His
Thor run was good. He's had good runs. And there's some good stuff in this. It's also, for something that's kind of serious, like this is a fairly serious introspection from Banner, it's also pretty funny.
Yeah,
in
there's some
cases.
great one-liners.
Banner wandering around, what do you call it, his sanctum, and trying to figure magic stuff out is kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's several good gags in it, and a fairly thoughtful conclusion to it.
I agree.
So
I liked this issue quite a bit.
Yeah, same here.
Great artwork.
That's all for team-ups, but we do have The Thing gets a new miniseries by Tony Fleeks, who's written Feral and what's the other, Stray Dogs?
Yep.
You know what? I will say, I haven't read this, but I was just flipping through it. The opening of it is a straight-up homage to the Warriors.
Yeah.
There's somebody on the radio that's like, instead of the, it's like, hey there, boppers, which was their code for gangbangers in the movie. There's like, good news, true believers, which in this case, true believers seem to be the supervillains. This is like a supervillain broadcast. And it seems like everybody is there's like a contract out on the thing.
Yep.
And you will find out before the end of it who's behind it, and it is a known sort of Marvel villain, and it's kind of an interesting thing, not quite what you would expect. And there's a few interesting cameos and ideas, it seems like, from other Marvel books. A little bit more street level stuff.
That's tying into Yancey Street.
Yep, and it's got Yancey Street tie-ins. So yeah, if you're looking for a little bit more of Aunt Petunia's favorite kid, or the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, or whatever you want to call him, Bashful Benji, also acceptable. I think I've hit all the main ones.
Yeah, that's...
then that's available.
Superman Unlimited #1. I think this was a hit for all three of us.
Yep. Yeah.
This is Dan Slott going over to DC. We're working with Raphael Albuquerque. We talked about this in the the Summer of Superman special.
Yep.
Where they previewed this, but this is the first issue of his new ongoing series, and it's got a really interesting premise.
Yeah, and like, I was looking forward to this for like the last several months, because I just wanted to see what Dan Slott did, a Spider-Man writer and generally Marvel writer, moving over to DC for like the flagship book. But I felt like he would maybe be a good fit for Superman, and I think he generally is in this. The premise kind of involves, I don't want to like give away too much, but it involves a sort of something that sounds kind of routine for Superman, a cataclysmic meteor or asteroid or whatever headed for the Earth, like a planet killer kind of thing.
There's something different about it.
But there's something different about it, and it sets up a number of interesting things. And meanwhile, you're getting like a pretty interesting sort of series of intercuts of like Superman history.
Yeah.
I guess, Randy, the way you put it when you were telling me what they were doing was that it's kind of showing like what key bits of Superman history you need to know.
Yeah.
Instead of like retelling the origin or something, they're like...
It's more like, this is... there's been so many continuity changes and reboots and that kind of thing in DC. This is almost sort of a story way of telling you, here's what's important.
Right, like he was still killed and resurrected from Doomsday's thing.
Yeah, he did go with the Legion.
He's married to Lois, and they have a son named Jonathan.
And a wacky kid named Oliver.
But they do mention like crypto is an important point that they make of crypto in this. So clearly they're bringing that in there, and and it sets up like a sort of a new status quo and a new threat. I know he wanted to do something, kind of make a mark and take. The way he put it is that he wanted to have a villain or a threat that was kind of felt like old hat or was not something people thought was particularly cool, and he wanted them to rethink how their approach to it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's a really good first issue. You get a lot of bang for your buck in this one, and it's been a while since there's been a book that's a new cornerstone Superman book. I think it's probably the one I'd point people to most right now,
for sure.
When if they're like kind of interested in him from the Superman movie.
Yeah, I think it's deliberately being put out for that, because the other one, the Superman that Josh Williamson is doing, is a little experimental, a little weird.
Yep.
And then Mark Waid is going to do Superboy. So this feels very much like this is the flagship right now.
This is the one where the preview portion that was in the Free Comic Book Day comic showed this scene where he's bringing in somebody who was like, I forget if it was the dude was like, it was like some escaping like bank robbers or something like that. And the guy, one of the dudes says before Superman is picking him up, and he's like, "Hey, I got something to tell you, Superman." And Superman's like, "All right, I'm all ears." And he's like, "Hey, remember when you stopped that giant ape from crushing Star City?" And he's like, "Yeah, Titano, right?" And he's like, "Well, my favorite aunt lives there." He's like, "So I just want to say thanks." And the dude's partner was like, "Man, you're embarrassing me." But that's just a good an example of like a fun sequence in this, and it's
also, I have to imagine that Raphael Albuquerque got to have a lot of fun, kind of not only getting to do new stuff, but like revisiting kind of older continuity and like putting his own spin on it visually.
Right, like there's some pages in here that
like
are
the Doomsday
beautiful.
thing. I'm like, that is kind of what it is, but Raphael Albuquerque gets to put his like he's an amazing artist.
Yep.
He has a really good sense of motion.
Gets to draw the Legion. He gets to draw like glimpses of Brainiac and Bizarro.
Yeah, it's just it's a good kind of thing for him to show what he's capable of to everyone, because he has worked on books, but I think they've been like American Vampire and
nothing so mainstream
right.
as this one for sure. So we recommend Superman Unlimited.
Definitely.
We've also got some indie first issues this week. Sleep by Xander Cannon is this sort of black, white, and red experimental book about. Did you say what's the premise?
Indie, but it's from Image.
It's from Image, sure.
So,
yeah.
So the premise that I understood in this is that it's this guy who, when he sleeps, he thinks that he may be like his sleeping self is somehow doing serial killer stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like magic or like sort of a weird split personality disorder or whatever, something like that. But it's also not like a trashy slasher.
Yeah.
Flipping through it, it looked like more like almost like it reminded me of something like a kind of a talky Memento kind of thing, and like very character driven. So this is not like a trashy gore fest or sleazy true crime sort of thing.
Right.
More of a kind of a thoughtful and like psychological character driven one. But yeah, Xander Cannon, I know him best from, what was the original thing he did way back when, his fantasy
Replacement
comic?
God?
Replacement God, yeah. But he's best known for Top 10. For drawing that, and...
But he's been doing a book called Kaiju Max, which is about kaijus in maximum security prison for a while now.
Yeah, if you have a fandom for any of his stuff, or just like kind of like that premise, I'd give it a look-see. It's just called Sleep.
Dark Horse is a new Ghostbusters Dead Man's Chest. Anybody get a chance to read this?
I didn't.
I hate the Ghostbusters, but
why do you hate the Ghostbusters?
I just don't like the new Ghostbusters. I didn't ultimately plug into it, even though they were decently made. But what I do want to say is that I really like the art in this.
Yeah, it's good.
It's kind of a little cartoony, but I feel like they captured the characters. They're all recognizably the characters from the movie. But in the same way that when they would draw, what do they call it? The real Ghostbusters, the cartoon.
Yeah.
Everybody had a sort of stylized look. It's not quite as stylized as that, but it's kind of like that. Everybody very recognizably themselves, but also a little bit stylish. It looks cool. It made me want to read it, even though I don't like those movies. So good job, Ghostbusters Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah.
Plus, I appreciate the idea of pirate ghosts.
Dark Horse also has a very weird indie book called Robo Wolf.
Yes, from their own pitch here, and you gotta just flip if you're in the store.
I like
flip
this
through.
art; it's really nice.
It's cool looking,
art.
trippy art that looks both kind of 80s iconography. The kind of cyber tech 80s look. But the premise is that it's kind of an ode to old 80s beat 'em up video games. Mm-hmm. They said also 90s comic books, kind of extreme comic books, and 80s action movies. I don't know a whole lot about it, but he is I don't know, a cybernetic wolf that fights crime or something.
Yeah.
So, they seem to be living up to
and a skull with a mohawk.
And a skull with a mohawk.
Yep.
Robo Wolf. Is this true now? Is it true? It was true.
And then Dynamite has giant-sized wacky races.
Yeah, you know what? That arrived late, so we haven't had a chance to read it, but I do kind of want to read it because the almost like dystopian post-apocalyptic wacky races that when
DC did?
When DC had the Hanna-Barbera license a few years ago, it was fun. This
looks a little more like a Speed Racer take.
Okay, I'd be willing to try that out too. I have no particular nostalgia for the original. I vaguely remember seeing some of it when I was a kid, but it is a catchy premise. A bunch of weirdo cartoon characters perpetually racing against each other. I think there's you can interpret that in multiple ways.
We've got the third issue of Absolute Flash this week.
Really good issue.
It was a good issue.
Yeah.
Third issue of Sonic the Hedgehog versus DC.
I want to hold on for just a second on the Flash. I don't want to say exactly what happens, but there is a Flash character in this that is appeared in one of the previous issues at least, that is used in a really interesting way and sets up a status quo that actually makes me. It's the first thing I've really liked in the book. I was liking it okay, but this thing I thought was really cool, and in some ways changes a lot about how it's going to play out from here on.
Agreed.
So I think this issue is the game changer issue. In short, that issue 3 is where
also it's an action.
The rubber hits the road.
It's an action comic.
It's an actiony one with some cool Flash fighting in it. Yep. So yeah.
DC Sonic number 3. I'm really enjoying this book, despite having no built-in fondness for the Sonic universe. This is where all the Sonic characters are stuck in the DCU. Darkseid and the Justice League seem to have been shunted off to their universe, and so they have to take up the Justice League mantle.
Yep.
So you get
things
like
a cyborged up.
There's a cyborged up Tails.
Yeah.
Shadow Blade is Batman.
Of course, right.
Knuckles is Superman.
Knuckles is Superman.
Were they all the ones who were previously palling? They did a team up with the various ones in the previous ones. That's very fun.
It was fun. Detective Comics starts a new story arc. This is Tom Taylor's book involving. It spins out from the previous story, but there is this mysterious conspiracy organization called Elixir that has been apparently running Gotham for a long, long time. And Batman goes to Bullock, who has been fired again. And he's a private investigator, and it goes into like his early days as a rookie when he ran into these conspiracy guys and what they were doing.
Who's drawing the book, by the way?
It is Mikkel Janin, I believe.
Oh man, still
no. This is Lee Garbett on this story arc.
Okay,
but it's really, really good. And
Tom Taylor tends to work with good artists.
This is a story of Harvey Bullock, sort of on the working for Batman. Batman hires him as a PI to look into this mysterious organization.
Fun. I like
it's really good. I thought it was a really interesting issue.
I had gotten behind it in the previous arc, but I might just I'll read this one as a standalone and check it out.
Newest issue of Batman and Robin Year 1 continues to have great artwork by Chris Samney. New issue of New Gods, which is weird and trippy.
Yep, it is. It is an intriguing issue, although it was a little bit dense, but. There is it has to do with the sort of death of a new god, and sort of like it's not a haphazard throwaway thing. The whole issue is spent in sort of this trippy dialectic with the Black Racer, who's their embodiment of death, so their Silver Surferish death omen. I think this book is still gonna parts like that I think will read best as a collection probably. Yeah. But what is there? Is this actually the final issue of the first arc?
I don't know.
Or was the previous one?
It's 6 issues. There's. I don't think they're using arc structure because
how are they going to collect it?
One big
12-issue run would be my guess.
Maybe so.
That's probably what they'll do.
Yeah,
because it looks like one big story.
It feels like that.
New issue of Moon Knight: Fist of Khonshu. Been really enjoying this Moon Knight versus an Asgardian drug dealer. This issue has him facing off against the drug dealer's like second in command, who has a magic sword, and goes into a bit of that. Really, really good stuff. I love McKay's Moon Knight. Amazing Spider-Man number 4. I think I'm reading Amazing Spider-Man again.
Yeah,
Joe Kelly's Amazing Spider-Man. Pepe Larraz doing great art.
I've really enjoyed this run so far. Bringing some different stuff to Spider-Man that I wasn't expecting, and Pepe Larraz's artwork. I mean, just kind of.
It's really good. Also, they use Hobgoblin, who we like Hobgoblin.
I do, and this is an interesting take with an interesting scheme, so we'll see where it ends up.
We've got One World Under Doom tie-ins this week, Superior Avengers, Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, and I feel like there might be one more that I'm missing. And then the third issue of Out of Alcatraz, the crime book with really beautiful Tyler Crook artwork that I've been enjoying. It's set in like the 50s during the height of Alcatraz as a prison. Yeah. I mean, until we reopen it next year, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You know, sometimes you just read a comic like that and you're like, oh, we should reopen it.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing I have to add is the fourth issue of Jason Aaron's Bug Wars, which continues to be a delight to read in its bugtastic way.
Yeah, there's a bunch of crazy stuff in this. What is the Bombardier beetle, Nick?
Oh, yeah, the one
that terrifying.
The one that fires
acid from its butt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Scary.
Yeah. That sequence was horrific. But let's see. Did we mention the fourth part of the We Are Yesterday crossover, Randy?
No. We missed.
So Batman Superman World's Finest has been crossing over with Justice League Unlimited with like a time travel story, and I haven't had a chance to read this, but we've gotten to part 4 between them, and I like this little crossover. It's between sort of basically Mark Waid's 2 books, his Batman Superman book and his Justice League book. I have to mention this for the sheer weirdness of it, even though I am not a Spawn guy. There's a Spawn book this week called The Curse of Shirley Johnson. I think it's a mini-series.
I forgot about this one.
This is the one way back in like 1991 or 92 or whatever, in the earliest days of Image. It
was issue 2, I believe.
It was the one with the ice cream killer or whatever in Spawn who killed kids, and Spawn then kills him, because that's how hardcore Spawn was, and it was this extreme 90s. Well, the little girl who was like the last victim of him, they are now like 40 years later or whatever it is, revisiting her story and showing her weird curse in the afterlife sort of thing. It's bizarre, but I guess I'm giving them points for the weirdness of continuing that story in some way.
I want to meet the writer's room that decided this was...
No, you don't. Unless I just want to say, every once in a while I read one of these Jim Henson Presents comics, and I kind of always like them. This is the one where any given issue has stories from Dark Crystal, Fraggle Rock, Farscape, and Labyrinth. And I didn't read the Farscape one because I've only watched a little bit of Farscape, but the Dark Crystal one was really interesting. Was part of the conclusion of a storyline that had, their creepy vulture-looking people, the Skeksis. It looked like it had like a Skeksis ally dude with one of their the Mystics. Those are their kind of four-armed, slow-moving, very tranquil, druidy type people who the Gelflings go to. But like a weird ally or alliance between the two of them. And it had really beautiful artwork. And then there was a fun like Labyrinth story that's about these goblins having to babysit the little kid from Labyrinth while the Goblin King is off doing his own thing.
Sure.
And but it's kind of a sweet little story where they're like this kid like becomes super rambunctious, like the kid in Incredibles.
Sure.
And these goblins are like, like you see like all the kids' antics, and they're like, "Oh my god, how long have we been doing this?" And they're like, "It's only been 15 minutes." Anyway, the Jim Henson specials are fun though. I'm liking these.
We got reprints of Absolute Flash and Green Lantern #1.
Oh yeah.
And Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, a lot of people have been looking for this. Basically, it's the second wave of Absolute stuff.
So we now have both issues of all 3 of those books.
Nice.
And the third issue of Flash this week. So if you want to get into those, now's a good time.
It's Flashy time.
There were some other new printings as well. Absolute Amazing Spider-Man #1 got one. I feel like there were a couple others. We also have, there's several good trades and collections this week. There's a DC Finest, those DC Finest collections, has Killing Joke and some other stories from like the 80s.
Yeah, like kind of some, I guess there are sort of some of the big Batman sort of graphic novels, like of the era, like Son of the Demon and stuff like that.
We got the Compendium of Dr. Fate by Jim DeMatteis. It's not an era I know, really.
Isn't that with Keith Giffen artwork?
Yes, I think it is.
Keith Giffen was moving into his slightly more stylized stuff at the time, and right when he's at that transition between the kind of more realistic art he had, like in the 70s and early 80s, and that kind of very stylized art, which would become super stylized in the 5 years later run. He had an interesting period in between that I really like, actually, and it looks cool on this. I don't know how the stories are either, DeMatteis is, best known to me for the guy who wrote Kraven's Last Hunt, but, like, I don't know a whole lot of his other stories. Oh, Justice League International. He scripted that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of... I like them reprinting some of these slightly, like, lost runs, but that were kind of longer runs.
Yeah.
So, more of that.
We got Lazarus, Volume 4. This is the Greg Rucka, Michael Lark dystopian future, where the billionaires have won and take over everything, and regular
they sort of
people
want
are
the corporate technocrats to take over the world, tech bros.
Yeah.
It's you kind of feels old timey.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like the world that a future that could happen now.
Right. No, it feels like the present.
It feels like the present. That's right. No longer futuristic, just the present. But it's a really well done series, and it is about the for people who haven't read it, it is about the sort of heavily synthetic bodyguard enforcer for one of the organizations, one of these mega families. Who starts to kind of doubt her allegiance to the family, and all the things that spring from that. But it's also a big kind of Game of Thrones, what do you call it, ensemble?
Yeah.
Sheer amount of detail that Lark goes into, kind of like creating this world.
Yeah,
Everything
and Rucka's
from, like,
world building is also really good.
Yeah, from like he does all the ads and like weird things that they do for things in world. It's really, really impressive.
It is really good. Just know what you're getting into a kind of a dark place with this that may be very reflective of the present.
Legion of Superheroes, The Curse hardcover picks up where the Great Darkness saga left off. This is like Paul Levitz and Steve Lytle, I want to say, maybe,
and maybe also still some Keith Giffen.
Might be, but this is sort of some of the best of Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would say that maybe they're depending on when you came in. For some people, the iconic era is like the 60s stuff with Superboy.
Right.
But I think maybe the most popularity it ever had was the 70s, 80s era, the kind of Starlin and then Levitz eras.
And at this point, they have sort of...
But Levitz particularly.
They've grown up a little bit more. They're not kids anymore.
They were a little bit more reflective of, like, say, the X-Men, where they felt like they were either late teens or early 20s.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of really good artwork in there. Steve Lytle's artwork in there is just incredible.
Yeah, I have a bunch of this. I've read a bunch of this, but I'm considering picking this hardcover because I'm not sure if I still have it.
It's just cool space opera, kind of, like the Legion concept of, like, basically it's got this sort of Star Trek optimism and futurism, but with superheroes.
Yeah, the only reason I picked it up this week is because I already picked up Lazarus, and Suicide Squad by John Ostrander also comes out with an omnibus this week. Yeah. This is some of my favorite comics of all time.
Yep.
They've put it out previously in a DC Finest volume, like a single issue, but this has like extras and an intro by James Gunn, and is the first, I think, like 19 issues of Suicide Squad. Definitely worth a read. Yeah. If you have any fondness for the concept at all, this is the best version of it.
It still represents to me one of the most exciting eras for comics for me, because I was just getting into DC after Crisis, and I got on board Suicide Squad, and I read the Legends miniseries that led into it. I was intrigued by the idea of the Dirty Dozen of supervillains, and then and I was with it right from the beginning, and it's got that cool cover that promises that this mission team that's put together, that one of them won't be coming back, and they were absolutely true to it, and the way it goes down is really good too.
Yep.
So if you have the means, I definitely recommend it.
We also got a graphic novel of Raymond Chandler's Trouble Is My Business. Yeah. What's the character's name? Philip Marlowe?
I
think that's right.
Yes.
He's sort of
it's not Sam
detective.
Spade. It must be Philip Marlowe.
I think it's Philip Marlowe. But it's a graphic novel of that. We got the Superman Death and Return Compendium, so one of these big thick trades of all the Superman, the Death of Superman, Funeral for a Friend, and then the return, like the 4 Supermen that came back.
It's a very classy looking version of it. I think it's the best visual design they've had on a Death of Superman trade, and I've seen like 5 different incarnations of it over the last 20 plus years. And
then we got the hardcover of Void Rivals Volume 1, which last week or week before I think. Yeah. We got the Transformers one. These are the deluxe hardcovers that have 12 issues at a time of the sci-fi epic that started the Energon universe.
Yeah. I made a sign for this one just to let people know that this is kind of like, honestly, if you're like an Invincible fan and maybe you're into following the Battle Beast and stuff like that, this is Robert Kirkman's connection to the Transformers and G.I. Joe universes, the Energon universe. It's his own sci-fi piece that kind of is particularly Transformers friendly. There's lots of guest stars from Transformers in it, but it's ultimately about his own sort of sci-fi story within that. So.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to talk about some news and some trailers when we come back. All right, so we watched a few trailers. Let's go in random order.
Cool. Okay.
Let's start with It, Welcome to Derry. This is HBO Max's new It prequel that takes place in 1951, 30 years before the It story that we've seen.
Is it just in that year, or is it doing any time jumping?
It looks to me like it's only 1951.
Okay.
I'm going to be blunt. This does not look good to me.
I don't know why they're doing it. I mean, from a production standpoint, it looks great. Like, it looks beautiful.
I mean,
like,
it looks...
the sets and the everything looks right.
It looks like a rehash.
I don't want to do it. Why are you doing a story of kids on bikes in 1950 as well?
And by the way, it's not the kids, the Losers Club that we know.
No,
because none of them are born yet.
Slightly different Losers Club.
Yeah. It's like... That seems silly to do.
So, in the last It movies that they did, they kind of moved the timeline forward a little bit so that the kid portion of it was set in the 80s. When King wrote the book, the kid portion of it was set in the 60s.
Yeah.
So this is just like, more or less looks like the stuff in the book did, kind of. And there were like other events that were like some weird instances of, Pennywise's curse kind of thing in the past that had to do with the all black nightclub there that gets burned down, where, by the way, the what's his name from The Shining was like working there, I think.
Halloran.
Yeah, Halloran was, and his Shining picked up on it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that weaves into this. And then there was, I remember also an incident with like a mobster and stuff like that. But like those elements from the book, I did not see in this trailer. It looked just like a slightly different version with slightly different kids on bikes, and I like y'all was weirded out.
It just
maybe there is more than it looks like.
If so, it's just a bad trailer. But I don't know. When they announced this, it sounded like a weird thing to do to me because it is a complete story.
Yeah. But because it has been like, I was thinking like if they jumped around in time, because if they showed Derry in the Old West in the founding of it or whenever it happened, like you could show some interesting stuff if you jumped around in time, although that'd be expensive production wise.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
get crazy. Show the meteorite hitting and show it
otherworldly, extra dimensional. Pennywise.
Do something completely different. Don't do the same story that you've done for two movies.
When they were talking about they were showing a little bomb scare thing, a Cold War thing, and there was something about a turtle that was like duck and cover turtle or whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder, there is in Stephen King's weird world building.
Yeah, it's the turtle with the world on its back.
But it's not quite that.
But it is akin to that story.
It's akin to that, yeah.
But it's almost like the turtle is the antithesis to it.
Right.
Like they are at odds.
That is God to it. Pennywise is the devil.
Right.
And but they didn't show any of that stuff. If it had had some of that King weirdness and world building, I would have been more interested in it.
But it's just the same as the It movies, which on revisit are pretty lackluster. Honestly.
I agree. So
other than Bill Skarsgård, he's good as It.
Right, and some of the what's his name from SNL was good in his role. Bill Hader. Yeah, he's good.
I am not a huge fan of the It movies anyway. I thought they were fine, but they're not really my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really need a prequel either.
But certainly does not make me want to press play.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. Unless I find out that it's not what the trailer looks like, this is probably not going to be a watch.
Yep. Ironheart got its trailer. People been griping that there was no trailer and it was going to be out in like a couple of weeks. I thought the trailer, I liked the music. I thought it was interesting. I really like Riri.
Yeah.
And I like the guy that casts the Hood. But this is weird and I can't make any sense of what the show's going to be about.
I actually like the premise of it. I think I like it more than y'all do. The Hood is a character who, when first introduced by Brian Vaughan in a miniseries in, the early 2000s...
Yeah.
Was an interesting character who they later kind of they butchered the character and they never, he hasn't been the same thing twice. So I don't mind him kind of, a rethink of him where he's, at least initially appears as like a sort of ally and benefactor to Riri.
Yeah.
But it seems like be revealed to have more villainous.
A corrupting influence.
Yeah.
But
I think that gives her an interesting kind of arc. depending on how they portray him, what his motivations are and stuff like that, that could be interesting.
I don't like the Hood as like a crime boss. And that's sort of what they're doing. I mean, and it's like the
he's
Bendis
been some
thing.
version of that for like 20 years, though.
Bendis ruined that character.
Yeah, he did. The original character that Brian K. Vaughan created was supposed to be the reverse of Peter Parker.
Right.
He was what if instead of becoming a hero, he'd become a villain? And then Bendis turned him into a weird crime lord with a demon and ruined him forever.
Well, the demon was part of the thing.
Yeah, but it's different.
He was meant to be like kind of an anti-hero where he would be also like the Parker of the Parker novels.
Yeah.
Sort of somewhat unrepentantly bad, but not terrible.
Yeah, he had a wife and a
kid.
mom.
Right.
Yeah, and a kid, yeah.
In the first issue, he and his buddy like find out some guy is undercover like Hydra or something like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of like curb stomp the dude because they're like fuck Nazis.
Right.
And you're like, okay, so he has some lines. He's not just a pure bad guy. And also he was kind of a low level, low power guy. He was like just trying to use his thing to get his like pay for life with his Russian girlfriend.
I think. Yeah.
And like his mom had like cancer in the hospital and he's like trying to take care of her. So he has Peter Parker type problems. He just resolves them in more corrupt ways. Yeah. And that was an interesting character. All right, that character is gone.
I like the piece.
But what's interesting is like we're assuming that he's just a straight bad guy. Maybe he's going to have some of those motivations and be a harder guy to.
That's what from what we see in the trailer. I mean, it does seem like he's going to be a guy who is trying to organize at the street level and get his and help Riri get hers. And I'm curious. I didn't think the trailer was super moving.
Let's just quick say for people who haven't seen it, it opens with this scene where she's going down into a building in an elevator, and like the elevator locks down kind of, and a voice comes on and it's like this sort of gas starts leaking to it and says, "Hey, this is your audition, Riri," because she was like on her way to meet this dude. And he's like, "There's in 3 minutes you're not going to be able to breathe in here. You've got to figure out this puzzle or whatever and survive to meet me or whatever." And she's kind of like, screw this, and she like smashes something and starts kind of like, instead of following his escape room rules, she kind of like is trying to do it her own way. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, it's a catchy sequence.
But I wouldn't work for that person.
Yeah,
but you haven't seen the scene. You don't know what it was he says afterwards.
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I feel like if we were doing job interviews where we threatened to gas people, it would be harder to get work.
Damn it, Randy! Don't tell people that. That's what I was going to do next time. Now, I like the pieces here, and I will watch it because I like Anthony Ramos. I like Dominic Thorne. I like all these people and their characters. Yeah. The trailer was just a little haphazard for me. I
didn't connect with
Riri Williams also feels like still kind of a blank slate to me. Yeah. Like the character needs more time to kind of develop.
I thought she was great in Wakanda
Forever.
I remember her being good. I don't know if I'd say great, but that's sort of how I felt about most of the movie.
I was trying to do way too much.
Yeah. So whatever goes on, I do need her to emerge as a very distinct character.
Yeah. And I want her to be her own self and not be another Tony Stark.
Yeah. Right. Well, she won't be that. She's definitely not Tony Stark. Because they're not playing... They severed her connection to Tony Stark in the MCU. She doesn't have that.
Right.
She has connections to Wakanda, which I think is more interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I do wonder if we'll see some guest stars from Wakanda in this series.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
There was... You glimpse Shuri in it, but was that from the movies?
From the movie.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if that was a...
I'll get Letitia Wright to come in.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Zootopia 2 has a trailer. This trailer is a vibes trailer. It's weird.
I thought this trailer was great.
It's almost like the characters themselves, like, there's like, it starts out with these little guinea pigs that hop out onto a keyboard and start playing this, like, club beat, sort of thing. And then that music persists throughout it. It doesn't show any actual scenes from the movie, or it doesn't seem to.
Maybe not. We don't know.
It's the characters kind of dancing, coming out.
But it looks like they're on the run from the cops trying to save whatever the snake is. Because the snake is definitely a new character.
There is a snake who's clearly a character. He's a big snake.
He's a big snake. Yep. He's like a big, boa.
To them, he'd be as big as Ka from the Jungle Book is.
But apparently he factors in, and they're on the run with him. And the cops are the bad guys.
it does seem to be the way, which was something I think we wanted to.
Yes.
We were hoping for that. It's not just like, oh, they just became the protectors of law.
I don't want furry propaganda.
But I kind of appreciate the fact that this doesn't tell you much. It just is kind of like this entertaining sequence of.
It's a reminder of like the fun characters, like, oh, there's the sloth from the DMV and all of these guys, and it reminded you of the energy of Zootopia. But yeah, it is.
Did you all like Zootopia a lot?
I really like Zootopia.
I think that's one of like the unsung Disney movies.
That's where we come to. I'm not sure there should be a Zootopia 2. I feel like they I don't know that I want to see the story continue.
I don't know, but the world building that they did in it was very good, and it feels like a place to visit again.
If I accept that but
like it has to be good, like that's the thing.
That the Disney machine requires them to keep doing these things. If they can do something good out of it, I'm fine with their things that exist.
And I feel like they could. There's probably stories to be told. It's kind of like doing Moana 2. Some people like Moana 2. But I felt like there was no need to tell that story.
I still need to watch it.
They, I felt like I am to this day constantly kind of referencing. I think the villain and the threat in you know, because there's some in Zootopia is really good. It has some good ideas about sort of manufacturing hatred, and using that, weaponizing that as a means of gaining power, which ends up being somewhat relevant to the world today, which is kind of crazy, but yeah.
So I did look. So it is the same director as the original Zootopia.
How about writer?
That I don't know.
So, like you, Randy, I have some reticence. Like, I'm like, well, in some ways, when you've got a movie as good as Zootopia, you can kind of only go downward.
Yes.
Written by one of the same writers, too.
So, what you hope for is basically what they did with Toy Story. That they treat it as like a sort of a special project, and that they make sure it's good. But nobody sets out to do bad. That you're always trying to do good, and sometimes things still end up sucking anyway. Or if it's just like merely okay, that's bad too.
So I had to
don't want a merely okay Zootopia.
So I had to look up the voice cast a little bit, and the snake is an important thing. It's voiced by Ki Hu Kwan. So I'm like, okay, cool.
By the way, just in the off chance people here, well, actually, that's not that unusual. Yeah, but if you have not seen Zootopia, it is like a big city, kind of a metropolis with lots of different, filled with animal people.
Yep.
They're all the sort of anthropomorphic animals and stuff. But it leans into their kind of like them reflecting the habits of whatever animal they are. But it also says something about like sort of race relations and
it was saying
and again things. About weaponizing race hatred, and it has like very witty writing and good characters, and it's told from the perspective of a rookie cop and a thief. Is that right?
Jason Bateman.
And who voices the cop lady?
Oh, I forget her name.
I forget her name too.
Officer something Hops.
Judy Hopps.
Judy Hopps. Yep. Not Jenny Hopps. Anyway, it is well worth your time. Better than you'd think. Lots of really amazing set pieces and sequences in it. Like it does seem like just as a city and location, it's a fun one probably to revisit. But what I would say to them is don't fuck it up, y'all. Yep. This is a good movie. You don't want to bring it down.
And then we've got the last trailer for Jurassic World Dominion. You know what it's called? That's what it was. I don't know.
So isn't it? Well,
I thought Dominion was the last.
I think it was
Jurassic World: The Next Adventure.
Rebirth.
Jurassic World Rebirth. Okay,
right. Because this is like basically would begin the equivalent of the third trilogy.
We are on like what? 7 or 8 of the Jurassic movies.
It's on 7, and if you include like little side projects, it's a little further along than that even. So this is the one with it. It has a slightly ridiculous throwaway premise, whereas the other ones were, like the last few. Obviously, the premise is always let's get some dinosaurs on screen and have them attack people.
Yeah,
but they did. They actually got to the theme park.
Yep.
And then they had I thought, a very cool idea, which some of it ended up panning out, some of it didn't, about these things get loose into the wild, and basically the whole ecosystem of the Earth changes because dinosaurs are reintroduced everywhere. And they did in some cases a really good job with it in the last movie of like showing these animals like, well, what is that scene, Nick? There's one where they're like is it like a lumber crew, and it's like the horn that they used like during their to like call the work teams in and out of like the forest or something has attracted like a brachiosaur.
Oh yeah.
Because it sounds like it's hooting sort of the honk.
Continue to run with that.
And that was like such a cool sequence, and like and there's people who are like exploiting it, who's like taking these animals in and they're like caging like young dinosaurs, like for like dinosaur cockfights basically. Right. But then there were these like there's this great scene where they're like the brachiosaur they just try and use like one of the trucks to pull it away and successfully because it's got that horn on it, and so it just follows the sound, and there was some thoughtful stuff in there, even though the movie itself a little hit and miss.
There's silly premises throughout these movies, but the execution is usually like pretty high.
Usually pretty good.
Like that opening scene for, I don't remember, it was a couple back where there's like raiders coming into the park that has been dormant for a long time, and they open a gate and don't close it, and it has that whole mosasaur opening. It was really, really cool.
There's some good sequences in even the mid ones.
But this one, it seems like they're
going back to the
specialists.
This is the island where that was like Site B?
So I don't know if it is or not.
Or is it a Site C?
It might be a Site C. And you know what? I'm okay with that. You can't keep returning to the same two islands. Right. There has to be like...
So there's something in the dino DNA of some of these things that might cure cancer, might...
Cure diseases.
And, but also, problematically, these dinosaurs are the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst.
It's like a prison where they kept the worst of the worst, but yes.
Again, I think that I've read some snippets of stuff that there's a little bit more to it than that.
That is
kind of like the cheesy catch-all.
Yeah, the elevator pitch gets spoken at some point roughly during this trailer, and so just to make sure you get the basic premise, that there may be some hybrid dinosaurs, or particularly dangerous dinosaurs on this island, as if they weren't dangerous before.
Right. But we have Scarlett Johansson and
there's a special missions team,
Mahershala Ali as kind of like...
Who's that?
Mahershala Ali. Okay. He's been in a bunch. Yeah. He was supposed to be the Marvel Universe's Blade.
But it didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
But there's some cool-looking sequences with everything from, like, a swimming T-Rex.
Yeah, which is like a Ken out of the original Jurassic Park novel.
That's one of those scenes.
That's fun.
There's a big... Is it the Mosasaur?
Yeah, the Mosasaur.
There's a big Mosasaur chasing like a very large ship that they've got access to.
Not a destroyer, but like
it looks like a mega yacht or something like that, and it's like ramming them from the side, or like it's bulk up against them, and all sorts of. There's clearly a major sequence involving it. Pterodactyls, or no, they're like the really big ones, like the ones that are
the pterodons,
pteranodon, but I thought these were maybe a newer one that
I think a lot of these might not be actual dinosaurs. I think they've finally given into the fact.
There is some dinosaur that is like, I thought it was the one that was like those really big ones. Like it had like a wingspan as big as basically like World War II planes and stuff. It is crazy.
Okay,
but. There is also clearly at least a few dinosaurs that I saw in this one that you only glimpse near the end of the trailer that are like some kind of weird hybrids.
Yep.
And
what has B.D. Wong done?
What has B.D. Wong done? I enjoyed.
Brady is sitting here shaking his head because, and like, come on, this is about the same as Fast X.
It has gotten there, but it is, to be fair, it did not start there. It started with a AAA sci-fi thriller from Steven Spielberg, and everything necessarily is a step down from that.
And then Spielberg phoned in a sequel.
Yeah, that's true.
Although I have a lot of fun with the sequel.
It's a solid phone-in, But like, if you buy into it, there's a lot of fun to be had. These are good popcorn movies. I think.
Will probably see this on day one.
And I would say that the comparison, ups and downs, to Fast and Furious type movies is fairly accurate. Yeah. I will probably see this one.
Yeah.
I just don't like dinosaurs.
I guess so.
What is wrong with
What a grown-up you are, Raymond.
One last bit of news. Kristen Ritter's Jessica Jones is going to be in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. This is cool. Jessica Jones came about in Daredevil. I'm glad to see her back. I really want Luke Cage back. I kind of like that they're bringing these characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't love that the Netflix stuff is technically in continuity now, but I wound up liking Daredevil Born Again, but it is still a little Netflixy for me.
It's crazy that there's a Daredevil show out there that I haven't watched. I've watched like 3 episodes, and
I will say it gets much better than where it starts.
Okay, because man, I was not feeling it.
Yeah, oh no, I get that. I totally get that. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about Andor and Murderbot and a few other things. All right, so Andor has finished its 4-week run, and we are going to talk about it. We are going to give spoilers, so if you have not caught up on Andor, don't listen to this podcast.
You should 100% go watch
Stop this
it.
podcast, watch those, and come back.
And come back.
It's much more important than us. We're going to avoid maybe sort of the final sequence, final ending stuff, spoilers, but we're probably going to talk about the concepts of it. So we're going to go pretty big spoilers here.
Andor dies.
No,
No, he doesn't, because he's in Rogue One.
but he will eventually.
He will
That's
eventually
true,
die.
but we all will eventually die. That's not a spoiler.
Not.
I mean, it can spoil your fun if
But
you
it's
bring up
not
a
true of
cocktail party.
Lazarus, Randy.
Lazarus, he died and came back.
After 3 days.
Yeah.
So okay,
Everybody dies, even Lazarus.
but then everybody comes back, even Lazarus.
I don't know about the everybody comes back thing, but maybe.
I'll put it to the test.
Okay.
All right, so
I was genuinely very pleased throughout this entire viewing experience.
yeah, I
Same.
feel like I'm going to say that it was 4 3-episode blocks.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it perhaps peaked with the third of the 4.
Really?
I think the Gorman Massacre ones hit the hardest for me.
They are really good, but man, this last arc with all the tension of what was going to happen with Luthen and all that stuff really worked for me.
Well, so, and here's our sort of first big spoiler, is that I think we all knew there was a solid chance that Luthen was not going to make it out of this.
Yeah, but
It felt like he was...
It wasn't his fate that got me, it was the way he got there.
Right.
Yeah,
and
episode
so-
10 is like a super standout for me.
Yeah.
So Luthen, and it is really good. Really, okay, so my reason why I don't think it's quite as strong as the previous one, first of all, I just feel like those hit like a dramatic peak, but also there is a little bit of Lord of the Rings sort of satisfying ending after a satisfying ending, and it is good. I'm glad that they did the ones that they did, but every once in a while it actually felt a little too hopeful for for Andor. But I do think it was earned.
Rebellions are built on hope.
All right, whatever. they have beat you over the head with how hard that hope is to get to.
Yeah.
Though.
Well, yeah.
That is the other theme
I
of
mean,
the show.
Luthen did not have an easy life.
So what I was going to say though is, basically, we knew that Luthen he has always been on the outs with the Establishment Rebellion, and as they have been coming together, Mon Mothma has left. You know, she did her big speech at the Senate in the previous one. Great sequence. They got her out. She's with the base is setting up on Yavin, and they're getting they're building a real army,
Yeah.
right? But he has, because he kind of uses such brutal methods sometimes and such an accelerationist, he is on the outs with them. And but the thing that catches up with him is that the Dedra, the Imperial intelligence agent, has been
ISB.
tracking him since the first season, and has made it kind of her mission. That's her white whale.
Well, that's her mission, but she's become obsessed.
Right.
Like, that has basically taken over every other aspect of her
She's
being.
an otherwise very highly skilled, highly professional, very terrible person.
Yeah.
And she catches him in a amazing sequence at his
that scene with the two of them
at
at
his front.
place.
His it's like not a museum, but what is he? That's like a
Antiquities
gallery.
He's an antique gallery. Yeah.
Antique
But
gallery.
it shows that she doesn't have any, forethought to think that he would take his own life.
Right.
She should have been smart enough to know that was a possibility.
Sure, but
she had to go in and do a gotcha.
Well, I think because it makes
moment.
complete psychological sense. It's almost even not like this failing on her part. It's just a natural thing because for years we have seen the passage of years go by on this show, and she has been stepped on by higher ups. Rivals are in constant competition with her. They definitely portray the kind of this is what it's like to work and live in an authoritarian regime. Constant paranoia, and everybody is jockeying for position because if you fail, you get thrown under the bus.
Yep.
she ends up fucking up and failing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But she also succeeded.
Man,
But that was her thing.
The scene with her and Krennic, where Krennic is basically dressing her down and like poking at her head, like it is brutal.
Yep.
Yes, it is a very uncomfortable, even though at this point we like know she's a terrible person.
Yep.
By the way, the thing is like where I was just like kind of like Luthen tries to kill himself, and they call in like Imperial medical team real quick, and they're like, she's like, keep him alive. And they kind of do. They get him to the hospital. They get him on life support. And, presumably they can patch him back together. And then this guy who knows every dirty secret of the rebellion could be tortured for his information. And it's such a horrific fate. And you kind of don't know initially what's going to happen until then. What's her name? Clea.
Yep.
Who's been his kind of right-hand person the whole time. But I heard somewhere that, like, she essentially might have been considered Axis. She was really more what they were looking for than he was.
Yeah.
Well, she was the front-facing. She was the one who talked to everyone.
Right. But we have seen her taking on an increasingly large role in this series. And we will eventually find out through flashbacks her initial connection to Luthen.
Episode 10 reveals all that.
Yeah.
And in a kind of great fashion.
In a really... there was both ass-kicking coolness and also extremely sad sequence. She infiltrates the Imperial-controlled hospital to take him off life support.
Yep.
And it's a brutal sequence. And yet again, she's like, does some badass stuff. Mm-hmm. There's even some humor in there.
Yep.
Yeah. With the like little alien old lady in the wheelchair.
Yep.
That she's like wheeling around, and this poor old lady just doesn't know what's happening.
She does not have stormtrooper accuracy. She has great accuracy with all of her shots.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like kill.
One of my favorite bits is when they're trying to figure out what happened, and they're like, "Well, we think it must have been at least a 3-man team." And they look at the video like, "Oh, it was one person."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was great.
Well, and that this was her like starring or first role as
that
an
actress. Yeah,
she does an amazing job.
It's crazy. She has like she bounced off of everyone great. Had a really intense sequence a few episodes back where they were trying to remove the bug.
Yeah,
that was really good from the gallery. Anyway, so what that sets up in this sort of last several episodes is that's kind of episode 1. Episode 2 is kind of a quest to get her off of Coruscant. Because everybody, like, at this point, like, any given one of them, if they get taken, it could be the end of the rebellion.
Well, it's also them trying to get the Death Star idea to the rebellion.
They have, like, a handful of key words. It's like, what is it?
Planet Killer.
Planet Killer. They know the word Death Star.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We see the fate, by the way, of poor Lonnie. He's like, as deep cover agents go, he's a real one.
I feel bad for his wife and kid.
Yeah, he does not make it out of this either.
Scene on the
this poor
bench
guy. I like to at least think that basically he didn't know it was coming and was dead before it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope
which
so.
I think might have actually been the one bit of mercy he might have gotten.
So I also think that people have made the point that possibly that Luthen was sparing him because the Empire was going to find him and torture the shit out of him and probably kill his family. With him just being killed without knowing that he was a mole, it's likely his family is safe.
Right.
Maybe.
I don't think they're gonna like tear through all their records and stuff like that, but I don't. Well,
no, because Krennic found out that Lonnie looked through her files.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're going to look, but I don't think they'll...
You don't think they'll care about a wife and...
I don't think so.
They'll look into it, for sure. But I don't think, actually, like, there's any value to... I think they would recognize that there's no particular value to, like, hard interrogation and torture and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, they... Cassian Andor, who's been kind of a little off... He was completely off screen in that first episode.
Yeah, he's not in there.
But he leads a team which puts him in jeopardy with the rebel establishment because they want to promote him. But he leads a team back to rescue Clea, who's a meaningful person. Oh, that's right. But who represents a very meaningful part of his life, worth taking the risk for. And he goes with 2 people. One is one of the other characters from Rogue One, Melshi, and the other is the K2 droid who gets some truly amazing.
They
scenes.
held out on K2 for the longest time, and it was
I think they
the
did
right
it
call.
just right.
It was the right call.
So Gilroy was asked about this, and he said, Tony Gilroy, who's the showrunner, but he said he's a plot killer. Like
Right, 'cause
basically, we're bringing
he
K2SO, and
steals
he's invulnerable. He's snarky.
He steals
he's powerful,
the scenes.
but also like it's hard to feel danger when K2SO is around.
Right. But the way they did this, there's this really amazing sequence, like very suspenseful, where they've gotten to the building where Clea is holed up.
Yep.
And they're like, we're going to get you out of here. And they're debating something that's very reasonable, which is like, she doesn't even want to go to Yavin, the rebel base, because although their goals are united, they have never been friends with them.
Well, she kind of views them not as laughable, but they're not as cohesive. They are not as dedicated to the rebellion as she and Luthen were in their eyes.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And I guess I would say have always snubbed them too. And while they're doing this and debating, should we go to this place or what, we see that there's like an Imperial, basically SWAT team, moving
stormtroopers.
What's that?
Helmetless stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Moving floor by floor, kind of getting closer and closer to them, to the point that when they're like, okay, we're going, they open the door and like the SWAT team is freaking there.
Yeah, that was a stressful thing too. I'm like, stop talking and go. What are you doing? You should know you're in danger. What are you doing?
They kind of spread that out a little bit by them screwing up and going to the wrong floor originally.
Right.
And kind of built that tension so
Tony
well.
Gilroy and his team, they really like the suspense that gets drawn out.
Yeah.
They did it also, of course, with the Gorman Massacre, with the riot in the end of the first season, where you see a lot of like the building tension, and you know it's going to explode at some point. But I will say this: K2 comes through in the biggest way conceivable.
Yeah.
Are you on our team?
No. That bit killed me.
Yes, there are like some sequences in here that are like, the kind of like stand up and cheer kind of moments that, very earned, by the way. Because this is not usually a stand up and cheer kind of show. But like, in the end of the first season when, what's his name, Brasso took that brick and started wailing on people, and the bell ringer kicked a dude out the window.
It's like those.
It's like those.
Yeah, it is. 100%. Yeah.
And then, let's see. Let's see. What's the final stuff? And it's what's going to become of Bix and Andor, who have gotten closer, and he wants out of it. He wants to get out of this, and he wants to run away, and kind of like, he's been trying not to be in the rebellion this whole time. Really, he's never.
Yeah.
Even though we have seen that he ended up joining up. But he's never quite been the full-on true believer. And not the way, like, what's his name was? Nimic, who wrote the manifesto. Yep. And, but there's a fateful encounter with a Force healer on Yavin who seems like she could be a charlatan, she could be true. It made the Force mysterious again, and I really like it's the one sequence in the whole series that has any Force anything in it. And even then, she admits a lot of times she's not sure if the power is working. She doesn't know if it's real power or not.
Yep.
But then when she ends up in contact with Cassian, she has this look of calm on her face, and she thanks him, and he's like, "What for?" Because he doesn't believe in it. And she's like, "For the clarity, right?" Isn't that what she says? For like, she feels certain now in this moment of her power and of the Force.
It's interesting that you read that he doesn't believe it, because I read it a little bit differently, that I think a part of him does believe it.
Oh, I mean, you could argue that, but you when he shows up, basically Bix feels like the person who's like, hey, come talk to the fortune teller, and he's like, get the fuck out. No.
Yeah.
He says no about 100 times, but then there is something that keeps he doesn't walk away when he could have.
Yeah.
And then she does say one or two things that are well, either accurate or a good guess. Cold readers is a very real thing.
She does help his shoulder.
She does help his shoulder, or the power of positive thinking. But it
was a nice thing to inject into the series.
I thought those sequences were great, and it's the first time in a long time that the Force felt both mysterious and powerful, and yet somehow at the same time the series acknowledged that there's hucksters out there in the world, and you got to be careful of them. Yeah. And you're like, well, this lady does not seem like a huckster, actually, but they treated her as if she could have been.
Yeah.
But she says that he's a messenger, and he has some place to be. And Bix is internalizing this conversation with rebel leaders who spoke to her earlier and said, hey, we are going to kick this dude to the curb if he keeps on flaking on us and running off. and otherwise we wanted to promote him. And so she makes the call.
Yeah.
And I know some fandom people have found though this was kind of an unfair call. I think it's the kind of unfair call that happens in war times, People have to make the decision. Also, it's one of those that doesn't quite relate to the real world, because how could you be so sure as something the religion is something we can never be sure of in the real world, but you kind of can, I think, feel the force. Well, I guess some people claim they are, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe even feel it, but she feels it.
Yeah.
And makes a call based on that changes their lives. We won't get into the details of it, I think, but I think it's very beautifully handled.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing about the show. I think every character is done well.
It's true.
Everyone gets an ending. Even if it's
when
not,
she was, by the way, just a supporting character in the first season, and I wasn't sure she would have much of a role beyond being his ex, who's a little more into him than he was to her at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is a good character. She's interesting and feels real. And then we kind of keep seeing these multiple sides where she experiences all this terrible trauma.
Yep.
You can understand how she would sort of feel protective of things and make the call she made, because who wants to be associated with more trauma like that?
Yeah.
And yet she's very devoted to the cause.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I also like that they made a callback to Nemec's manifesto and the final things.
They do. They call back a lot of things. In fact, I feel like almost all the loose ends get tied up, with one sort of exception that was clearly deliberate, and I've seen Tony Gilroy talk about it, which was the full fate of Andor's sister.
Yeah.
He said that she was most interesting as a deficit, as something that he was chasing after. Nick, you reminded me that it was probably unlikely that she had survived, because his own mom said something like nobody made it off that planet.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, she did say that. I had mentally kept on thinking that would be the win that he gets in this second season, because they needed him to have some kind of win, given that we know what his fate will be. But that was not it. Gilroy threw a curve and was not there's actually much more at stake. It's like the heart of the rebellion itself.
I mean, you could also, make the kind of concession that Jen ends up being kind of that sister stand-in.
She does. She absolutely does.
In Rogue One, where he basically feels like he has to protect her and be with her.
It works really well.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's why I just rewatched Rogue One last night, or sometime.
Yeah, I'm going to rewatch it, even though...
and it is not Andor level.
Right, the writing is not there, but
But there are sequences in there that I think Gilroy definitely punched up, that they left his script alone.
It's got his signature.
And it's got his signature. And there's enough in there that it feels like it works with the show.
Right.
Not everything is... It was done 10 years ago. It's not going to fit.
Right.
But
and I think that's fine.
That's fine.
It's honestly, Andor is a pretty amazing achievement to me. Throughout this whole thing, it has had so much relevance to the our modern America throughout that has been painful to watch.
Well, and it's also
but in a good way.
It's a kind of Battlestar Galactica, everything comes back, because he was basing a lot of it on history.
Oh, right.
Like the
he
French
did
Revolution,
his research.
All this other stuff.
Leaders, he kind of, Che Guevara, radical leaders, radical infighting within.
He said he didn't write this with a newspaper in his hand, so he was not doing the stuff basing on current events.
Right, but he knows the patterns. But all authoritarians follow the same playbook.
All that shit is coming back, and it's like...
Yeah. He commented on it in the best way, the smartest way possible. Randy, you went from being lukewarm on it to giving it a more serious attention and getting way back into it.
Yeah, when I rewatched that first season, I loved it, and I liked all of season 2.
I think honestly, season 2 ended up better than I could have possibly thought. In a lot of ways, I had one or two slight misgivings, and weirdly they're the same misgivings I had about Michael Clayton's ending. But it ended in such, I think, a good place, and I think it took hold of a hopeful note, which I think is absolutely vital and is like the theme, that rebellions were built on hope. It sounds trite, but when you've worked through so much pain like he has these first 2 seasons, it doesn't feel trite.
I will say, I enjoyed Andor on a lukewarm level because it didn't resonate with reality so much, if that was the choice I got to make.
Right. If we got to be in a better world without a authoritarian shadow...
But this got to be a silver lining to the shit world that they were living in.
That's right. Really, really amazing outing. I think everybody should watch and enjoy it.
Agreed.
Yeah. Murderbot.
Yes.
This is a news show on Apple Plus. This is based on a series of novellas
by Martha Wells.
My wife is a huge fan of these books. I found them a couple years ago and started listening to the audiobooks. I think I've heard like 3.5 of them.
I've heard the
there's
first
like
one.
6 or 7 of them.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
It's a kind of darkly comedic sci-fi, only half-hour show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of comedy drama, but not comedy in the like jokes and laugh track, but like in the dark internal monologues and kind of slightly larger than life characters.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm finding it more and more to appreciate the 30-minute show.
So I like the idea.
So the books, I will say this. I came at this because I really enjoyed the books, and I was sure that the adaptation wasn't quite going to land, but the trailer was fun.
Yeah.
And the books are hard to adapt because the books are all from Murderbot's point of view.
Yep.
And a lot of the whole point of the thing is that he is basically learning to be a human and faking being a human and all this kind of stuff. And it's hard to do that in a show. I thought having him narrate almost directly to the audience was a smart move.
Yep.
It works. You get that sense of humor, that sarcasm.
Let's just quick say it's set in pretty far future.
Yeah.
There's faster than light travel, many other planetary systems we go to.
Yep.
Alien races.
Yeah,
Are there aliens in there too? I hadn't watched enough to see that. And so every sort of dangerous missions and areas you have to take. What do they call them? A sec?
He's a sec unit.
Sec unit. Yeah, security unit. Robot, and they have lots of better models, but this dated one is the one this initial group. I don't know. Are there other groups?
This group that is sort of the main characters of this that are not Murderbot.
Do they say the main characters?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I thought they might move to.
They're not in book 2, but they come back for book 3. They're definitely sort of a found family that he winds up having.
Interesting.
Against his own wishes, basically. He does not.
That actually makes me more interested because early on they're kind of portrayed as all kind of. I was like, is this weirdly conservative? Because they're kind of meant to be hippies.
This is what Suzanne said to me. She's like, I wish that people wouldn't write people who are in a commune as why do they always go to weird hippies? Because they did make them a little more weird hippie than they are in the book, right?
A little bit,
but they are scientists from a world where polyamory is normal, and they live in sort of a commune. They don't have sec units there. They
reluctantly take him on so that they can.
They're against it,
so that they can get insured.
Aren't they against violence?
These are a little bit of the liberal cliche cartoon.
Yeah, they're like, well, we don't believe in this, and they're like, well, we won't insure you without it, and so they're like, okay.
Yeah, but they are all portrayed in the show and in the books as smart, kind people with. They all have their individual. Like 2 of them are having a fling.
There's interest, romantic interest on multiple parts, almost like the Fleetwood Mac.
The lead, a scientist who they did perfect casting on. Mensa.
She's great. Yeah.
She's great. Is sort of a gentle leader who goes on her own.
I can tell she was the deepest of the characters. I'd only watched one episode.
But the character that David Dastmalchian plays, that's from Ant-Man. That character is sort of the jerk. He is an augmented human, so he actually has a little bit more of like the technology stuff Murderbot has. Yeah. But he is. In the books, he is such an asshole all the time, but they did such a great job of making him like, oh no, he's an asshole, but he's usually right.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Murderbot. The sec unit that they take with it is has hacked his programming.
He's hacked his governor module, which means that he's free. He's free. Yeah.
But he doesn't want to show that he's free because they'll melt him.
Yeah.
Right. But you get his internal monologue, and he's very snarky and sarcastic. And he's like, he'll say things like, what I've learned in my travels is that most humans are assholes.
Yeah. So my wife really liked the books, and I think they got this she felt like Murderbot felt like a person on the spectrum. Like they don't really understand how people work and don't have any interest in it. Like when he unlocks his governor module and is free, he doesn't want to free all robots. He doesn't want to do it. What he wants is to watch streaming video that he can watch in his head.
Yeah,
Right.
He
He
watches
watches these-
7,000 hours of these
basically
of these
the
soap
knockoff
operas.
Star Trek soap
opera,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, who played the lead in
John Cho.
John
John
Cho,
Cho,
and also Phil Coulson.
Phil Coulson's in there, yeah.
Did they continue to show those?
Yes, Tales from Sanctuary Moon is a huge part of the books. And when my wife was listening to them playing this show, she was very excited to hear that they were going to do Sanctuary Moon because that felt like a nod in the right direction.
Because it kind of teaches him a
his
little bit.
amazing bouffant of sculpted hair is pretty impressive.
There's not much about this that I feel like works better as a show than as a book, but the Sanctuary Moon stuff does, because it shows Sanctuary Moon and it's like melodramatic how someone helps someone when they've been hurt,
Right.
and then he tries to use that exact same thing with someone else, but he says it like a robot.
Yeah.
And that's a gag that's hard to work in a book, but it works perfect in a show.
Alexander Skarsgård does a lot of really good and subtle acting.
And we should say, so the robot, when you initially see him, he kind of looks like some kind of cool Mass Effect robot with a robot blank sort of slate face.
Yep.
But I guess he can. There is I don't even know. There almost looks like there's organic type processes.
He's an organic robot, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of has a human face.
He's wearing a suit
it.
of armor, essentially,
Right,
to keep
and
him safe.
And it's the handsome but sort of dull face of who's the actor?
Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård,
who was in like The Northman and a bunch of like
Yep.
he does a lot of like indie properties, but also commercial stuff and.
And so they start running into, basically the series follows him presumably getting closer. Y'all saw more of it than I have and read more to these people, but also like they're like, oh, there's not supposed to be any like alien life here, but this big giant centipede looking thing attacks.
Which I thought looked cool.
Yeah, you're gonna see some cool special effects here, and he has to fight that off and take a fairly grievous injury himself.
Yeah.
That was amusingly gory.
But he's like, I can remove my pain receptors to that portion of my body,
Yep.
so I don't feel it.
And like a lot happens in the first episode, and I think people can get its vibe probably with that. I will say, like the kind of constantly snarky humor didn't do a ton for me, but I liked it just enough that I might give it a little bit more of a try. And finding out that the characters that are initially portrayed kind of as like almost satirically the hippie commune
and
people.
I think that is a gripe I have with the show. I think that they did make them a little, but there's the depth to them, and they're going to do more with them.
Also, right, I could see that they were doing that at least with the team mission leader person, lady. That makes me more interested.
Also, the other person on the Sanctuary Moon is Jack Breyer.
Jack Breyer, that's right.
From 30 Rock,
right.
which I love, so...
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. This was fun. I didn't
Did y'all
love
both
it.
watch the full season?
There's only 2 episodes.
They're releasing, basically
it's-
they do...
it's normal
Apple
release
does
schedule.
like two at first,
and
then they'll
weekly,
release it weekly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I will say, I think this is another feather in Apple's cap. I think they've got a lot running right now.
They do. They have a lot of good shows.
And
you know what? If it's only 2 in, then I'm not far behind. I'm only 1 episode behind, so maybe I'll watch it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch more of it. So, yeah. All right. I think that'll wrap it up for us.
Yep.
We'll be back next time with more. And until that time, yo, Joe. Roguecast is a weekly podcast broadcast from Rogues Gallery Comics and Games in Round Rock, Texas. You can find us online on Facebook and at www.roguesgallerytx.com and email us comments or questions at roguesgallerytx@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.